The galaxy held its breath. General Farnock stood in the center of his war room, surrounded by high-ranking officers and holographic maps. His sharp eyes scanned the room, but deep inside, he was nervous. Earth had given him a simple message: apologize publicly. No tricks. No war. Just admit what he had done. Admit that he hit a human cadet without reason. That he treated Jackson like he was nothing. But Farnock was proud. Too proud. He growled and slammed his fist on the metal table. Apologize. To a human. Never. Across the stars, billions watched their screens as Earth's message replayed again and again. It had no anger, no shouting, just calm, cold words. This is your last chance. Stand down, or we will act. Some thought Earth was bluffing, but those who studied humans closely knew better. They whispered in fear. When they stopped shouting, that's when they're most dangerous. Back on Farnock's planet, the skies were clear. His soldiers stood ready. Defense systems were online. Warships floated above the capital, locked and loaded. Farnock laughed. Let them come, he said. We are ready. He wasn't. At exactly 300 galactic time, the stars above his base began to bend. Not explode, not flash, just bend, like space itself was folding in half. Then came the silence. Not the usual quiet before battle, but a deep silence that made the air feel heavy. No alarms rang. No sensors detected anything. But within seconds, the giant defense towers turned black. The warships above shut down, drifting like dead metal. Soldiers screamed. Screens went blank. Farnock's officers looked around in panic. What is happening? One shouted. Then the countdown appeared on every screen. 3. Farnock stared. What is this? Who's doing this? 2. His voice cracked. Activate the backup shields. 1. A flash. Not fire. Not lasers. Just pure white light. It lasted only 3.7 seconds. When the light faded, Farnock's entire military base, towers, ships, weapons, walls, was gone. Erased. No explosion. No smoke. Just empty land where once stood the pride of his empire. There were no bodies. No ruins. Nothing. Across the galaxy, the footage spread like wildfire. Every species watched, stunned into silence. Earth hadn't sent a fleet. They hadn't fired missiles. They had simply erased him. There was no broadcast, no speech, no demand. Earth disappeared again, like a ghost in the night. Quiet, controlled, unstoppable. For the first time in generations, the Galactic Council didn't speak for 3 whole days. In academies, students whispered about the reckoning. In military bunkers, commanders rewrote their threat lists, putting Earth at the top, not for what they did, but for how little they seemed to care. Earth didn't celebrate. They didn't gloat. They acted, then vanished like nothing happened. And on the alien academy station, where it had all begun, the halls were quiet. No one laughed at humans anymore. No one dared. Jackson walked slowly through the wide corridor. His face was calm, but his steps were firm. Around him stood cadets from over 50 species, some once proud, others once cruel. But now, they simply moved aside. They didn't speak, didn't look him in the eye. Even the instructors who once ignored him now stood in silence as he passed. He stopped at the training hall doors. He looked up, the same doors where he had once been slapped by General Farnock in front of everyone, the same place where the galaxy had mocked his people. He placed his hand on the door. Then he turned and looked back at the crowd. You thought hitting one human was nothing, he said softly. Now you know better. No one answered. Jackson didn't smile. He didn't need to. He simply walked into the training hall, leaving behind a silence deeper than fear. Far above, orbiting in the dark of space, an invisible Earth ship hovered for just a moment, then vanished. Humanity had shown its face, and now the galaxy would never forget. The slap had already happened, but its sound still echoed in the minds of everyone at the Academy. Jackson didn't fall when General Farnock struck him. He didn't cry, didn't even flinch. He just looked straight ahead with quiet eyes. That silence was more terrifying than any scream. After the general walked away, the crowd slowly scattered, still whispering, unsure how to feel. In the Academy mess hall, the topic spread like wildfire. Cadets of all species sat in groups, talking in low voices. Why didn't he hit back? A green-scaled Zarkan cadet asked. Maybe humans are just weak. Another replied, trying to laugh, but it sounded forced. No, said a deep voice from the corner. Everyone turned. It was Professor Talloner, one of the oldest instructors at the Academy. He rarely spoke outside class, but now his eyes were fixed on the table in front of him. He looked worried. You don't understand what just happened, he said. The room went quiet. Professor, someone asked carefully. You think humans are weak because they don't shout, because they don't attack first. That's your mistake. You see one human cadet and think you know the species. You don't. He looked around at the young faces staring at him. I was on the front lines during the siege of Pharos, Talnor said. Our ships had blocked every path. Our armies were 10 times larger. We gave them a chance to surrender. Do you know what they did? No one answered. They smiled. A chill went through the room. They knew they were going to lose soldiers. They knew they'd suffer. But they smiled because they were already planning how to win. A cadet raised a hand slowly. But the history files said Earth lost that battle. Yes, Talnor said, but not the war. They retreated that day. Then 6 days later, they came back. Same place, but everything had changed. Their tactics, their weapons, their strategy. They learned, they adapted, and they destroyed our fleet like it was made of paper. Silence again. Humans are not just warriors, the professor said. They are survivors. They don't fear pain. They don't stop when they're hurt. They become more dangerous. One young cadet whispered, then why are they so quiet now? Talloner shook his head. Because they don't want to fight. Not yet. But make no mistake. The moment they decide it's time, nothing in this galaxy can stop them. Elsewhere in the Academy, Jackson sat alone under the stars. His face was calm, but inside his mind, storms were building. He had sent a short message back to Earth. Just one line. It's begun. No emotion, no explanation, just facts. Far away on Earth, the message was received by a group of silent figures sitting deep inside a mountain base. A general placed the tablet down. He looked at the others and nodded. Activate watch protocol. Begin silent observation of all alien fleet movements. Should we respond now? One officer asked. No, the general said. We wait. Back at the Academy, a few alien cadets walked past Jackson, but didn't say anything. They didn't push him, didn't mock him. Something in the air had changed. His silence now felt louder than words. One brave cadet stopped, a bird-like creature with wide golden eyes. Why didn't you fight back? He asked Jackson gently. Jackson didn't answer for a moment. Then he said, because I'm not alone. None of us are. He stood up and walked away. The cadet stared after him. That answer stayed with him for a long time. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, Earth's hidden satellites moved closer to the alien systems. Invisible ships adjusted course. Silent drones watched. Every move was recorded. The aliens didn't know it yet, but Earth had seen everything. And they were watching. The Academy grounds were quiet, but it wasn't peace. It was fear in disguise. No one had seen General Farnock since the slap. He stayed inside his command tower, far from the cadets, and far from the whispers that now spread like fire. In the halls, everyone walked slower, spoke softer, as if afraid their words might trigger something. Jackson didn't speak much either. He trained hard, studied harder. But every time someone looked at him, they felt something strange. It wasn't anger. It was control. Calm control. Like he already knew what would happen next. But it wasn't just the academy that changed. Across the galaxy, strange things started to happen. A Tharnak warship, stationed on the outer edge of Sector 14, suddenly lost all power for 7 minutes. Engines shut down. Lights went dark. When it came back online, every file about Earth had been wiped clean from its system. Another ship, sent to spy near Earth's space, vanished. The tracking signal just stopped. No wreckage. No distress call. Just gone. High commanders laughed nervously. Coincidence, they said. System errors. Pirates. Nothing more. But the scientists didn't laugh, and neither did the data analysts. Every pattern, every glitch, they all pointed to the same thing. Earth was awake and watching. In the academy, instructors began holding secret meetings. Security officers doubled their patrols. And then it happened. A message came directly from Earth. No greetings, no names, just a plain video clip. It showed Jackson standing still as the general slapped him. Then the screen turned black, and a calm voice spoke. "We do not strike first, but we never forget." That was it. The Galactic Council saw it. The military leaders saw it. And Tharnak saw it too. He crushed the data pad in his hand. "They dare threaten me," he growled. One human boy. But in the deepest part of his heart, even Tharnak felt something he hadn't felt in years. Doubt. Jackson continued training. He never asked for protection. Never called Earth. But he knew they were watching. Not to save him, but to see if he could stand alone until the time was right. Then, one night, just before lights out, a strange noise echoed through the academy air. It wasn't loud, just a soft hum, like static, like a warning. Everyone's data tablets blinked once. Then a sentence appeared on every screen. "Harm one more human, and the sky will fall." No one knew how the message got through. It bypassed all firewalls, all encryptions. Even the instructor's private files were touched. It was a ghost warning, clean, cold, and final. That night, no one slept well. Even the toughest alien cadets locked their doors and checked the windows twice. And Jackson, he simply lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. Calm, silent, ready. He knew what was coming. Earth didn't roar. Earth didn't send fleets yet. But the shadows had moved. And the galaxy was starting to understand one truth. You don't scare humans. You wake them. The academy was on edge. No one said it aloud, but the truth was clear to every cadet. Something was coming. The galaxy was holding its breath, and the quiet, watchful eyes of Earth were everywhere. Tharnak's hands shook as he looked at the new reports. Ships that had disappeared months ago, no signals, no signs, suddenly reappeared. Not in the usual space lanes, but deep within Earth's borders. Hidden, but not forgotten. Then came the intercepted message. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a command. It was a warning. The voice was calm, controlled, and chilling. "You hurt our people. We don't forget. Now you will feel what it means to face us." It wasn't from Jackson. It wasn't from any single human. It was from Earth itself. Tharnak slammed his fist onto his desk. His officers looked at him with fear in their eyes. "We should respond," one of them whispered. "We can't let them scare us." Tharnak's voice was cold, like ice. "We won't respond. Yet. They're trying to provoke us. But I'm not falling for it." But deep inside, he wasn't sure anymore. Back at the academy, the cadets were still talking. It wasn't just about Jackson now. It was about Earth itself. Their silence was more terrifying than any battle cry. The humans weren't reacting. They were simply waiting, watching. Jackson didn't make a sound. He knew better than anyone what was about to happen. He had felt the shift in the air. It wasn't just a feeling. It was an instinct, something ancient and deep inside him. Humans had been pushed too far, and they didn't need to shout to make their mark. The instructors, once proud and confident, started to grow more serious. There was no laughter anymore, no mocking, no boasting. Earth had made its move. They had declared their position without firing a single shot. One day, a strange message arrived at the academy. It wasn't addressed to Jackson, but to every cadet. It was simple, clear, and unsettling. Humanity's patience is not limitless. The words hung in the air like a storm cloud, heavy and silent. Then, on the outskirts of the galaxy, a small Earth ship appeared, just one. It wasn't big. It wasn't heavily armed, but it moved like a shadow, fast, silent, and nearly invisible to every scanner in the sector. The alien fleet that tried to track it lost contact within minutes. The ship was gone before anyone could react. Another message followed. This time, it was short and cold. One ship, one mission. Everyone who received it understood. Earth wasn't showing its full strength. Not yet. But the message was clear. If they wanted to fight, they would fight in their own way. At the academy, Jackson stood alone on the training field. His fists were clenched, but his face remained calm. He knew Earth was watching him, but he didn't need their help. Not yet. The galaxy had to learn what humans were capable of on their own, and he was ready to be the example. The instructors gathered in secret once again. This time, the topic wasn't how to deal with humans. It was about how to survive them, how to protect themselves from something that didn't seem to be afraid of anything. Earth has no limits, one instructor said quietly. We've seen their history, their wars, their technology. But what we don't know is how far they will go to protect their own. Another cadet, a tall creature with dark, leathery skin, spoke up. But if they wanted to attack, why don't they just destroy us all? The professor's eyes narrowed. Because they can. There was a long pause. The truth hit everyone like a cold wind. Earth could end the war at any moment. But they didn't. Not yet. They were waiting for the right time, and they were giving the galaxy a chance to see that they were different. They weren't the aggressors. They were the ones who would finish what others started. Back in the mess hall, Jackson sat by himself again. He didn't need to talk, didn't need to explain. His presence was enough. Slowly, the cadets around him stopped whispering. They stopped looking at him with fear. They started to look at him with respect. He stood up, leaving his meal behind. It was time. Time for them to understand what Earth was all about. The air in the academy was thick with tension. Cadets whispered in low voices, careful not to speak too loudly in case their words betrayed their growing fear. The messages from Earth continued to come, calm, controlled, but full of an unspoken warning. Humanity was watching. Humanity was waiting. Jackson could feel the change. He didn't need to hear the whispers to know what was happening. He saw it in the eyes of the alien cadets around him. They were no longer mocking him. They no longer saw him as just a boy. He had become a symbol of the force that had been unleashed when Earth chose to rise. Across the galaxy, the message from Earth had begun to spread. It wasn't through grand speeches or powerful fleets. It was through something simpler. The silence. The absence of action. The promise of something much worse if they continued to push. And so, the galaxy waited. Tharnak sat in his command room, his fingers clenched around a data tablet. The latest report made his blood run cold. Earth wasn't sending ships. Earth wasn't sending messages. Earth wasn't making any visible moves at all. But something had changed. The galaxy was no longer the same. The council was unsettled. The generals were nervous. Tharnak's mind raced as he reviewed the data. Earth had been quiet for too long, and now even the strongest fleets in the galaxy were starting to hesitate. They all knew that the humans had the power to destroy anything in their path, and yet they weren't attacking. He knew what the galaxy feared. They didn't fear a sudden invasion. They feared something worse. The cold, calculating silence of humanity's true strength. They feared being left with no choice but to face Earth's wrath. Jackson didn't care about the politics of the galaxy. He didn't care about the Council's fears or Tharnak's worries. He only knew one thing: Earth would not back down. The day came when the entire Academy was called to assembly. The cadets filed into the main hall, their faces tense with uncertainty. Tharnak appeared on the massive holoscreen above them, his image towering over the room. His expression was stern, his voice cold. "We have received a message from Earth. They continue to push the limits of our patience. We are no longer going to stand idly by. We will retaliate." The room was silent. Even Jackson could feel the weight of the moment. For a moment, it seemed as though everyone was holding their breath, waiting for what came next. But then, without warning, the screen flickered. The room went dark. A pulse of light shot through the Academy, so bright it burned the eyes. Jackson didn't flinch. He had seen this coming. The lights returned to normal, and the Academy's alarms blared. The screen now showed the black void of space. Slowly, a new image appeared. A human warship, sleek and powerful, cutting through the stars with ease. This wasn't a fleet. This wasn't an invasion. It was just one ship, one small ship, but it moved with purpose. A calm voice echoed through the Academy speakers. "We have arrived. Your warning was clear. Now, we return the favor." The cadets looked at each other in shock. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of their own breathing. Then, as if by instinct, they all turned their eyes to Jackson. He stood tall, his gaze steady, but he didn't say a word. The ship moved closer. Its presence alone was enough to send a wave of fear through the Academy. The galaxy's most powerful generals and fleets were terrified, not because of what the ship could do, but because of what it represented. Humanity was here. The warship didn't open fire. It didn't launch missiles. It didn't even send a warning shot. It simply hovered, silent, waiting. On the surface of every planet, in the heart of every space station, and in every corner of the galaxy, people looked up. The message was the same. Humanity was no longer afraid. Jackson turned and left the assembly hall, his steps quiet but confident. He didn't need to speak. The humans had already spoken. And the galaxy would never forget what they had just witnessed. The galaxy was holding its breath. The alien fleets, once confident and unshaken, now stood on edge. Earth had made its move, and they had done nothing to provoke it. Humanity had chosen to remain silent, to wait, to watch. The fear was palpable, spreading from world to world. Tharnak's nerves were stretched thin. He had seen the message, and he had heard the warning, but nothing could have prepared him for what was about to happen. Humanity's response was clear. They had waited long enough. The galaxy had thought they knew what to expect from Earth. They had seen humanity's wars, small, insignificant skirmishes compared to the galactic-scale battles they were used to. The fleet they had shown was impressive, yes, but it had seemed almost too small, too simple. They had underestimated it, and now they were paying the price. On every comms channel, every frequency, the warning echoed. "You have one last chance." Tharnak clenched his fists as he listened. He had expected retaliation, but not like this. Not this cold, perfect, surgical strike. It wasn't a threat anymore. It was a statement of fact. No one, not even the alien generals who thought they were untouchable, could ignore what happened next. A single human warship, once seen as a trivial nuisance, cut through the stars at impossible speeds. The fleet around it was gone, vanished, without a single shot fired. The ship didn't even flinch when it crossed the boundary of enemy territory. Tharnak had barely enough time to react before the ship activated its weaponry. There were no explosions, no flashing lights. In one heartbeat, the military base on the nearest moon, home to over 1,000 soldiers, was simply gone. In a blink, it vanished, leaving behind only the cold, empty silence of space. The strike wasn't even an explosion. It was as if the base had been erased, wiped clean from existence. No warning, no mercy. Then, as if nothing had happened, the human warship faded back into the shadows of space. Just like that. No victory speeches, no celebration. Earth didn't need to invade. It didn't need to make a grand gesture. It was sending a message, and the entire galaxy understood. Humanity wasn't about to lose a war. They were the ones in control, and they could end anything at any time. No fleet, no army, no general could stop them. At the academy, Jackson stood at the front of the assembly hall. His face was unreadable, but in his eyes was something new, a kind of calm certainty. The cadets watched him with a mix of awe and fear. No one knew what to say. They had witnessed the unthinkable. Earth had delivered its answer, and it wasn't one anyone could ignore. The human response had been measured, precise, and brutal in its simplicity. There was no grand invasion, no long battle. Earth had shown the galaxy one thing. You hurt us, and we erase you. The alien generals on their distant ships were already making preparations, but they weren't preparing for a fight. They were preparing to run. They had seen what Earth was capable of, and they knew there would be no escape if they didn't back down. Across the galaxy, fleets fell back. Alliances were tested. The Galactic Council convened in a panic, trying to find a way to save face. But the truth was simple. Earth didn't need to prove itself anymore. It had already won. As the tension spread throughout the galaxy, a final transmission was sent out. It wasn't a plea for peace. It wasn't a threat. It was a single, calm message. We are not the monsters, but we will be your reckoning. The response was deafening silence. Jackson walked calmly through the academy corridors, the cadets parting like a sea before him. They didn't speak to him anymore. They didn't need to. They knew who held the power now. And the galaxy would never forget what Earth had done.